This is Jack from teachingeslonline.com. I am an online English teacher and also a teacher trainer. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about how to plan for your online one-to-one English lessons and where you can find the best resources. Now, I'm making this video because I get a lot of new teachers who are either new to teaching in general or to teaching online, and they want to know how to plan their lessons, what to expect in a lesson, and where they can find resources. Because in most language schools, these lessons are one teacher to a group of students, and you have a very specific book that you go through. So the language school usually gives you a book, and you go through this book in order to give your lessons. Now, online teaching is different because of two main reasons. Firstly, it's one-to-one. Now, you might have had experience teaching one-to-one before, but most teachers don't. Most teachers who go through the traditional way of teaching, where they go to Spain or they go abroad somewhere, they are teaching to a group of people. So that's a different type of dynamic. And secondly, we're using these online platforms like Zoom or Skype in order to give our lessons. So this gives us added benefits, but it also restricts things in certain ways. So just bear that in mind while we go through the different things in this video. So I'm going to talk about what makes these lessons unique and how you can use that to your advantage. And I'm also going to give you 3 tips when it comes to planning, because planning can take a lot of time. Getting the resources you need and planning your lessons can take a lot of time. So I'm going to give you some tips to help you plan better lessons that are specific to your students, and also how you can save time by finding the best resources. Now, what I'm going to do as well is leave a pinned comment below. So if you're on the YouTube app and you're watching this after the live video, then you'll see a pinned comment. And what I'm going to do is leave links to what I think are the best resources, and I also want you to leave comments too, telling me which websites you use to help you plan, what lesson plans you use, how you plan your lessons. And what I'll do is I'll take some of those comments and add them to the pinned comment, so anyone watching this can have that information. So I'm going to share my 3 best resources a little later, but I've got 3 tips to share. Also, very briefly, I want to say I made a video on what a typical one-to-one online lesson looks like. And this just goes through the makeup of an hour lesson and what I used to do in these lessons. But know that there are many different teaching styles. There are different types of students out there and different areas of English. So if you're teaching somebody how to prepare for the speaking part of the IELTS exam, and this learner is an advanced student, what you do will be very different to how someone would teach a beginner who wants to learn business English, or a beginner who wants to learn conversational English. So bear that in mind too. But I'm going to talk about how to create lessons for general English lessons, and just like a typical English lesson. So the first tip is not to get overwhelmed by everything and go lesson to lesson. So you don't need to build up an online library of lesson plans. You don't need to create dozens of lesson plans before you start teaching. Find the learners first and then go lesson to lesson. In fact, it's really important that you work out what your student wants in your first initial lesson. And once you've done this a couple of times, this trial lesson, this consultation, then you won't really need to think about what you need to do in this. Instead, you'll have this idea or this layout of what the trial lesson looks like, and you'll be able to evaluate your student to know what level they're at, evaluate their grammar to know what kind of things they need to work on, and also ask the student what they want to focus on too. Because one-to-one lessons can be tailored specifically to each learner. And that's what people want. When they sign up for one-to-one lessons, they don't want generic group lessons in a language school. They want to work with a teacher so that the lessons are specific to them. So go lesson to lesson. Build up these resources slowly over time. We're going to talk about where you can find these resources soon. But you don't need to create all these different lesson plans before you get started. Find your students, work with them, and create a curriculum based on what the student wants, based on what they need to. So go lesson to lesson, but start by getting a student first. Okay, so get your student, then start creating your lesson plans and go in lesson to lesson. Tip number 2, know that a lot of the lessons will be focused on conversation. So most lessons, one-to-one, are based on speaking and having conversations with your learner. So this changes the dynamic a lot, especially when you compare it to what a classroom lesson usually looks like, where you have the book, you go through, they read a little bit, they do some writing practice, you give an explanation, you have speaking, there's a listening test. That doesn't really happen a lot in online lessons. Yes, you can introduce articles, you can embed videos, but I find for the lesson to flow, most of what you're doing is speaking and listening, having that conversation. And that's what most learners want, again, when it comes to online lessons. But that doesn't mean that there is no structure, that you're just having a casual conversation and just letting it flow. That can happen, but you can also introduce structure to these conversational style lessons. For example, you can go over what you did in the prior lesson and test your learners to see if they have learned what you taught, or to ask some questions based on grammar that they found difficult in the prior lesson, to test and retest to make that flexible. You can have a discussion about certain topics, you can do role plays, you can watch a mini video in that lesson and ask some questions based on that. So you can really make this conversational style lesson structured. And you can let it flow at the same time. Some students just want to talk and to receive feedback on the mistakes that they make. I know a couple of students I used to teach who just wanted to talk, but they wanted to be corrected too. And this just kind of, we can go off on a little tangent here by saying what you can do outside of the lesson, because it's not just about what you do in class, in the online lesson, it's also about what the student does outside of the class too. And this is where they can do lots of reading, watch lots of videos, do the grammar exercises, do listening practice, so that your lesson is super focused on them practicing their speaking. So that is tip number 2. So just to review, tip number 1, go lesson to lesson. Number 2, know that a lot of lessons will be focused on conversation and speaking, but you can structure this at the same time. Again, check out that video I made on what a typical online lesson looks like. Now the third tip is all about resources, all about the lesson plans and resources. So there are 2 main things you can do here. You can create your own lesson plan, your own structure, or you can use what other people have done. You can use resources that other people have made. Now, I'm going to give you 3 of my favorite resources. I always recommend these. There are many more out there too. Check that pinned post because I'm going to add more there after this video, after I record this video. The first one is off to class. And they say it combines lesson plans and a student management system. And this was something I was looking for when I first started teaching online, because I wanted some type of structure, some type of course book to go through, because I was new to teaching and I needed that structure in order to give these lessons. And I think Off to Class is great for new teachers. So if you're a new teacher and you're not sure about how to structure your lessons, then use something like Off to Class to begin with. And over time you'll learn what features of this software is good for you, if you want to continue using it, and how you want to introduce some of these elements into a lesson in general. But Afterclass gives you lesson plans that you can access, but also your student can access the lesson plans too. So they can log into their account and you see something different to what they see. And it's like a whole control system, which makes it easier. Because that is what is missing or what was missing in the online world. And I looked for hours and hours to find something like this. So check out Afterclass if you want something a little bit more structured. The next one is Breaking News English, and this uses news topics, so different stories that are current, and then they create all these different activities and conversation topics and questions you can ask based on this. So it's a short article with lots of exercises. And I always use exercise number 5, which are these great questions based on the article. So that was my go-to when I needed something at the center of the lesson. And then I would just go off and make my own resources based on this. I've got to say at this stage, after a while, I could create lesson plans on the fly. So I could take an article a student had sent me, read it, and then just go straight into the lesson and just let things evolve and bring in different elements from there. So yeah, Afterclass, Breaking News English, and another one is Film English, which is based on short movies, short films, and then a lesson plan involved in that. So that one is called Film English. I really like that one too. Also, there's a great website, I'll leave a link to it, which just has an unbelievable amount of questions that you can ask your learner based on different topics. And there's also another one where there are different role plays that you can do based on topics. I really like introducing role plays into the lessons because it allows the student to get into character and to express themselves a little bit more. And it also just introduces those kind of real life situations which just aren't possible if you're just having a conversation. I really like role plays in this. So those are some great resources that you can use, which saves you a lot of time when it comes to planning. Now, I do want to say at this point that you can create your own lesson plans too, and many teachers do. So I used to do this. I used to take a video or a song or an article and create a lesson plan based on it. And if you're going to do this as well, then create a blog post about it. So if you have your own website, then create a blog post based on the lesson plan you have made. Because this helps your current students, because they can go back and have a look at that lesson plan and it's all there for them. You can also share these lesson plans on social media, which will help you attract new students. So I remember I made a lesson plan based on Happy by Pharrell, the song Happy. And this reached so many people. I think the British Council shared it, and so many people watched that video and took the lesson plan and did the exercises and left a comment on my website. And what this does as well is it helps you attract new students to your online lessons. So this is like a marketing aspect of it too. And then if you're going to do this, it's important to have a call to action on that blog post to say, oh, while you're here, know that I give one-to-one lessons. Why not try one today by clicking this button? So that allows you to reach new people and to reach new students who might be interested in your lessons. But it also helps teachers too. Teachers are constantly looking for good lesson plans. So if you have a good one, and if you lay it out in a way that people like, then teachers are going to use this with their learners, they're going to share it with their learners, and that gives you more exposure too. So that is what I've got to say about planning for your online lessons and where to find resources. So please do leave a comment telling me what kind of lesson plans you use, what websites you use for your lessons. So then we can create that good comment, that pinned comment, and anyone watching this can just go straight down there and have all these different lesson plans at their fingertips. So just to go over those tips again, know that online lessons are unique in that they are one-to-one, which means they're usually more conversation-based. And don't get overwhelmed by thinking that you have to have everything there before you even get a student. Use your learner and ask them what they want to go through, and evaluate your learners to know what kind of resources you're going to use, and don't be scared about going lesson to lesson. I used to use certain lesson plans with certain students. So I had a few guys who were in the financial world, so I used lesson plans specific to them. Then I had more generic lesson plans and also some for IELTS students too. And you build these up over time. You know, you can create Evernotes, you can create libraries, and you can just reuse these with new students based on their levels and what they need to go through. So go lesson to lesson, help your student build these lesson plans. Know that a lot of the lessons are going to be conversational based, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be structured. And then use resources that are already there or build your own. Okay, I'm going to check the comment section here to see. I've just received an email from me of an online English tutoring interview tomorrow. Good luck with that. It's interesting that you say, I find that a number of my lessons are similar to what you find in a classroom with grammar, pronunciation and vocabulary, but the dynamics are different. Yeah, this is true. Like, I find it can be, but the thing is, it's more conversational based. So there's more speaking involved. So when you go through all these tips, then you're talking or the student is talking. There's not a lot of quiet time. There's not time where students are working in groups. Usually what's happening is that you're speaking or the student is speaking. When you're going through grammar, you're introducing the grammar points, and then your student is being evaluated and they are practicing it. So there's always someone speaking in these online one-to-one lessons. That's the point I wanted to get across. Okay, so if you are new to online teaching, then check out my free video series that goes through how to find students, what online teaching is about, and how to get started. There'll be a link to that in the description. And yeah, if you found this useful, please like and share it. Great, thank you for being here, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye for now.